So one of the most popular things you see in Photoshop these days are sort of photo compositions. It's kind of the thing that we think of when we hear the term photoshopping, where people basically cut stuff out of a photograph or out of multiple photographs and they put things together to make a new photo. And the popularity of this kind of thing leads to a lot of questions about how you make accurate cutouts of stuff. It's easy enough when you've got an image that's got clearly defined edges or something that's a very basic shape. But, a lot of things where you're cutting out people and, feathery edges and hair and that kind of thing, it gets really difficult. And so a lot of people are wondering, how do you make those kind of really accurate selections? So we're going to take a look at a number of different techniques, because it turns out that it's not just sort of one process, it's a series of different techniques that you can apply. So let's begin. So the first thing that I want to talk about is layer masks. Now, layer masks are going to help us a whole lot when we start making our selections. An image in Photoshop is composed of a series of layers, which you can imagine as being sort of stacks of sort of plastic. If you remember, like overhead projectors, they've got these sort of plastic transparent sheets with stuff drawn on them. If you were to imagine putting lots of sheets of plastic on top of each other, you can see through in certain areas and you can't see through in other areas where stuff has been drawn. Well, Photoshop works a whole lot like that, where layers are just bits of image data stacked on top of each other. Now, by default, when you open an image in Photoshop, you get this sort of a locked background layer. These layers don't have any transparency, so that's not going to help us a whole lot when we try to cut something out. So I'm going to just go ahead and double-click on this layer, and it will ask me to give it a name. And you see now that lock is gone, and we have a normal layer that has or is capable of having transparency. There's a couple ways to do this. If I just hit undo, you can also go up here into Layer, New, Layer from Background. So you see how it was a background layer. I can create a new layer from background. The same dialog box pops up. That little lock icon goes away. All that means is that now I can create transparent areas on this layer. You see, if I undo one more time and I tried to use something like the eraser tool over here in our tools panel, if I try to use this, I get something kind of strange. I get this background color white being painted in instead of getting something transparent. But when I double-click or create a new layer from a background and I use my eraser tool, now you see I get that sort of a grid in the background. The grid is Photoshop's way of telling you this area is transparent. And you can actually change how that grid looks. You can go into your preferences, which are just barely off the screen here. There we go. And if we go into transparency and gamut, whoa, big dialog box. You'll see that we've actually got ways that we can change our grid, and we can even set custom colors for it if we want. But I'll just leave it as it is. This grid represents transparency. So that's going to be useful to us. Now that we have a layer that's capable of being transparent, let's create a layer mask. The layer mask icon is right down here, Add Layer Mask. And you'll see when I do that we get this extra little thumbnail over here that is locked, as indicated by this chain icon, to the position of our layer. Now the layer mask thumbnail is white. What white means is show in the world of layer masks. Layer masks are grayscale images. White means show, black means hide, and shades of gray mean kind of show, kind of hide, be partially transparent. So you see we have a completely white area that is linked to our image. If I were to take my brush tool and I were to get out black ink with this layer mask thumbnail selected, and you'll see if I click away and click back, you see that little rectangular box indicating that it's selected. If I paint some black on this layer mask thumbnail, like so, you'll see that with my brush as I paint, areas of the image become transparent. And you can see there's black represented here on the layer mask thumbnail. In those black areas, my layer is hidden. So let's just remember that, and we'll come back to using layer masks a little bit later. I'm just going to drag my layer mask down to the trash, and I'm not going to apply it. I'll just delete the layer mask, and it's gone. But let's remember that layer masks can do that, because that's going to become extraordinarily helpful to us as we go forward.